This podcast provides information to help esports professionals identify and approach legal problems. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. Legal information is not the same as legal advice, which is an application of law to a party's specific set of circumstances.
You should not and are not authorized to use this podcast as a source of legal advice, and the information in this podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship between the Law of Esports podcast, any of the lawyers or affiliates of the podcast, and any consumer of this podcast.
Welcome to the Law of Esports podcast, the #1 podcast that discusses legal issues as they apply to the world of esports. My name is Jake Hicks, and I'm an attorney that represents teams, orgs, and leagues.
And I'm Nefi Lopez, and I'm also an attorney that represents athletes, streamers, and personalities.
And the goal of this podcast is to bring relevant legal issues and identify, analyze, and make recommendations on how to handle those issues in the world of esports. And we are bringing you this podcast both in audio and on video. And if you're seeing this on video, you will see that our set is not perfect, but there's something to be said about doing the thing. And so we do have microphones that were supposed to work that don't. We have a monitor with our logo on it. The logo I like, the monitor we'll fix, and we have laptops in the frame because we have laptops in the frame.
Yeah. And we're going to work on hopefully reducing the clutter so that way, you can focus on us and the information that we're providing.
Yeah. But like I said, the goal of this podcast is to bring serious issues in the esports world to the forefront. And with this first full episode, we don't think there's any more relevant and any more serious legal issue than that of swatting.
Yeah. So swatting has been a pretty prevalent issue lately. We've seen a lot in the Apex community, but to start off, we're going to discuss what swatting is. I think it's a common term. A lot of people have an idea, but a lot of folks don't really know what it is. So swatting is an extremely dangerous prank in which an individual essentially anonymously calls in a police tip claiming that a serious crime has occurred or is occurring or will occur at a particular address. Sometimes those crimes are things like kidnapping, murder, having somebody hostage, bomb threats, things of that nature, basically in order to generate a very extreme and hard response by the police that oftentimes leads in either somebody's arrest or somebody getting seriously hurt.
Yeah, and the goal is to get a SWAT team or some heavily armed police response to the address that they're calling in on, in the hopes that it will be recorded and it can end up as a prank. But these pranks can be pretty serious. And there have been some notable swatting incidents, really for the past decade, as long as streaming has been popular, going back to Justin TV, MLG TV, when Twitch TV first began, when it converted from Justin TV. And I think, if you've been watching video game streamers and been interested in video games for a long time, you'll remember some of these incidents occurring.
Yeah.
And I think one of the first ones that I saw are really, that really made an impact on how dangerous the situation can be was in 2013, when the original OpTic team house, the 6050 house, was swatted. And it was actually swatted on stream. The OpTic team was doing one of their first 24-hour streams in 2013. And it was at like 2 a.m. I think JCap, Call of Duty player for OpTic at the time, who's now retired, RIP,
RIP,
was literally playing the game, and you could see, people, you could hear people knocking on the door, you could see flashing lights outside, and then the stream was just cut short. And I think the explanation of the swatting incident and what happened is still one of Big Timer's most viewed videos. Yeah, I think it's one of his few videos over 1 million
on his
views,
channel. Yeah.
Which is wild because all of his videos should have 1 million views.
Yeah.
But it was a really big deal at the time. And you would think that, as people got to do this more and more, they would get in more and more trouble and it would kind of calm down, but it really hasn't. And after 2013, things got worse. In December of 2017, there was a Call of Duty event in Dallas, and it was the Call of Duty World League at the time. where the Dallas police received a bomb threat at 4 p.m. on the first day of competition. And this tournament was multi-day. And this was back when Call of Duty, at least Call of Duty World League tournaments, had an open bracket.
Yeah.
So there was hundreds of teams. I think a few really big teams, I think Envy and OpTic, were playing in pool play matches at the time, which were both being streamed on MLG TV. And the matches were cut short. Everyone had to evacuate. They stopped group play series. They stopped practices. They evacuated the area completely. And luckily, no one was harmed. But it stopped the competition for an entire day because someone called in a bomb threat at the arena where they were playing. Even super recently with Tfue.
Yeah, just like literally a couple days ago.
Yeah.
On stream. And I think Tfue did probably a better job than most people. Whenever people make these claims, they want to get a reaction. They want to see these guys, they want to see the police bust in and they think it's funny, but it's actually a very serious crime. As a matter of fact, it's so significant that it has led to the death of individuals in the past. And that's really the first time where it came into the mainstream media, because news networks all over the country picked up the story, which you're going to talk about in a little bit. But that's really the first time where swatting led to more than just an arrest. It actually led to the death of an individual.
Yeah. And I think before that, swatting was serious in terms of it had stopped events. I think there was a podcast with the OpTic crew a year ago where they talked about how when they were swatted in 2013, they actually had a bunch of marijuana and stuff in the house.
Yeah.
And that could have been very bad for them.
Yeah.
Imagine a world without Nade Shot, without Scumpy, without Hex. But I think it really came to a head in 2017 with the story of Andrew Finch. So what happened in 2017 is there was a kid who was playing some video game.
It's Call of Duty World War.
Yeah, Call of Duty World War II. It doesn't really matter what the video game is. That's beside the point.
Yeah.
The point is it was a competitive game, and there was a kid in Kansas who was playing a kid from Ohio. They got into an argument. They got onto a Discord type call or a game chat, and the 17-year-old in Ohio asked a guy in California to SWAT the kid in Kansas. Now, the guy in California, his name was Tyler Barris. You may have seen his name in the news before because he was recently sentenced to prison. And what Tyler Barris did was he called in a threat to the police. And the threat that he called in was he said that he was at the address in Kansas, had just shot his father, was holding his mother at gunpoint, and was going to shoot himself.
Mm.
And so naturally, law enforcement sent a heavily armed SWAT team out to the location to prevent further death, injury, suicide, whatever they could prevent for additional people being harmed. The problem was the address that Tyler Barris was given and the address that he swatted, not only was it not the kid's address in Kansas, but it was the house that belonged to a guy named Andrew Finch, who was a 28-year-old father, husband, by all accounts, a normal, good guy. The tragedy is that Andrew Finch naturally came outside to see what the commotion was about. When he came outside, he was shot and he was killed.
Yeah.
And he died because of Tyler Barris's phone call calling in a false police report. Now, Tyler Barris was prosecuted and he was recently sentenced to 20 years in prison. He could have got a max of 25, but he pled guilty. And I think we both know if you plead guilty to 20 and take 20 years, you are looking at significant time above that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that the fact that he got such significant time, as attorneys, we've seen people that commit crimes similar to this that you don't see them serve that much time. This guy essentially committed murder via SWAT. That's what it is. Most people see swatting as attempted murder, right? I don't know if you guys ever heard of suicide by police, where people go crazy and they, try to assault the police officer, attempting to essentially get themselves killed by the police. It's essentially the same thing. You're using the police as a weapon. And it's been an issue in the past. It's clearly been an issue in recent years, and it's something that's extremely dangerous. And the law, believe me, guys, when I say this, technology has gotten to the point where the police will find you and we'll prosecute you as it happened here.
And it's actually, technology has gotten to the point where Tyler Barris was arrested and charged with a crime for that call. But they were able to trace earlier 911 calls and find that he had actually attempted to SWAT a number of other people. And so those were all charges added to his case that just buried him in terms of facing a punishment. So he pled guilty. He took 20 years. He was likely facing a much higher number than that for both the times he attempted to SWAT people and the time he actually caused someone's death by trying to SWAT somebody.
Right.
And it cannot be overstated that anytime you call in a police report, you call 911 and you say someone's being murdered, someone's at gunpoint, the police are going to respond strongly.
Yeah.
I think anyone will agree. And I know there's a bunch of different opinions about the role of police in modern day society, but I think preventing the immediate murder of another person is one that most of us can agree the police should try and stop.
Right.
And that's why when people are swatting other individuals, they try and puff up the crimes to be as dangerous as possible. But the Kansas federal prosecutor who prosecuted this crime, he said in the 20-year sentence, he said that we hope that this will send a strong message about swatting, which is a juvenile and senseless practice. We'd like to put an end to it within the gaming community and any other context. Swatting, as I've said before, is not a prank. And that was from U.S. Attorney Stephen McAllister right after the sentence was announced a few months ago. But I think what that shows us is that swatting is on federal prosecutors' radars.
Yeah.
They know what it is, and they're going to prosecute it because they don't want another husband, father, another Andrew Finch type to be harmed, potentially killed because someone wanted to, prank someone.
Yeah.
But whenever death can be involved, it's really not a prank.
Yeah.
It's really a threat that's super dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's the other thing about that case. You don't even have to be the one that calls the police to SWAT the person. In that same case with Tyler Barris, remember that 17-year-old gamer in Ohio that was originally the one that was upset? His name was Casey Viner, and he was sentenced to 15 months in prison for joining in on the call that resulted in the swatting that led to Andrew Finch's death.
Yeah.
And so if you're on a Discord, if you're on a game chat and people are discussing swatting, you have to shut it down. You have to let people know, because just saying that you weren't the one that made the call won't get you off the hook.
It's not enough. Absolutely.
And so we cannot overstate how serious the problem of swatting is and how much it's not a prank and no one should do it. And I can't believe, on Christmas Eve, on December 23rd, Tfue got swatted.
Yeah.
And this is 3 years after the Andrew Finch incident.
Yeah. I mean,
which blows my mind, because a 17-year-old who was on a call, he's not 17 anymore at the time of sentencing, but at the time of the offense, 17, 15 months in federal prison. And that's for being on the call that led to swatting.
Right.
And so I can't believe that it goes on, but unfortunately it does. And so we have to talk about what to do.
Yeah.
With this risk in mind.
Right. And so obviously people have their opinions about swatting, but in the YouTube community, on the Twitch community, I haven't really seen anybody address it and really help streamers, whether they're already big or have the potential to become big, on how you can be proactive about avoiding being swatted. Okay. We can't talk enough about how important it is not to do it. It's not a prank. It's something extremely serious. And, although we're OG gamers, we've been members of, especially the Call of Duty community. You remember those OG lobbies where people, they just were talking smack, and it's been pretty bad, but never have I ever thought that swatting was a good idea. I'm going to talk to you about how to do it, but it's happened to everybody. It's been happening to a ton of Apex players lately. How to avoid it. Thank you. It happened to Booga, right? The guy that won the Fortnite tournament, the young kid. It's happened to a lot of Call of Duty or professional gamers. It happened to a lot of streamers and personalities. It happened to H3, who has a massive YouTube channel. Multiple times. It's happened to the Airsoft fatty, right? Chris LaFawn. It's happened to young kids that are involved with YouTubers, HQC, Laserbeam, Jake Paul, Team 10, Keemstar, and a number of other places. And people that
Charlie D'Amelio, the TikToker.
Yeah, dude.
They threatened her with swatting. She's like, I mean, super just normal.
Yeah.
And not even like a gamer or anything.
Yeah.
Just a TikTok star.
Anybody that is in the public eye could potentially be a victim. And so that's why it's important to know how to avoid it. Right. So, but first, let's talk about what you do if you get swatted. Okay. I hope that none of you guys watching this are ever found in that situation, but it's important to understand the most important thing is to comply. Okay. I know for some reason the word comply has become sort of a political issue, but it's extremely important when it comes to self-preservation, right? In order to preserve yourself from harm is you want to comply, right? Oftentimes these police officers, they don't know that they're responding to a fake phone call, right? It's like a bomb threat at the airport. They treat it real 100% of the time. And so police officers going to these situations, potentially facing death, right? Not knowing that this person has in fact committed murder or is kidnapping or threatening to hurt or harm somebody. They expect the worst of the worst arriving on a scene. And so if you fail to comply, you could potentially get hurt or even worse, be killed, right? One of the important things is not to argue or yell with the police officers. As soon as you are essentially addressed by the police, chances are they're going to cuff you while they make sure that the perimeter is safe, make sure the property is safe, and they will do a sweep and ask you questions, right? All you have to do is calm down and let them know that, hey, this is what I do for a living. Chances are some young kid on the internet thought it was funny, called you guys. I apologize. Try to help them as much as you can in regards to ensuring that you are not in fact trying to commit a crime or have attempted to murder somebody. But, as soon as they find out that, you've been swatted, chances are they're going to let you go. Now, if you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, which we talked a little bit about what was going on at the house, you be careful about what you tell the police officers, right? You don't want to divulge too much information because at the same time, you want to ensure that you don't say anything that could incriminate you. Okay. And we're going to talk about that more in detail as the episodes progress. But if you suspect that you are getting swatted, right? One of the big things, especially if you're on Twitch or YouTube or wherever you're streaming, and you see that your chat that's one of the big ways to know if your chat is talking about somebody's threatening to SWAT or somebody's going to SWAT. The first thing you should do is stop what you're doing, call the local police, and let them know where you are and that there has been threats of a potential bogus SWAT call, right? That's extremely important. You want to be proactive about these threats if you care for the safety of yourself, your team members, right? If you live in a team where in a house where you have team members, or if you have a house with family and children, you want to be proactive and prevent yourself from getting hurt. Okay. And so now that you know how to handle the situation if you're getting swatted, let's talk about how to avoid getting swatted. All right. So Jake and I are kind of, let's split these up a little bit. There's kind of a lot of information there. So why don't you start us off with some of the first things? Yeah.
So one of the first things you can do is kind of the obvious one, and that is protecting your IP address. Use a VPN if you can. Opening up, and especially for streamers, be careful with what's on your screen when you're streaming. Closing out your OBS, or people opening up their email or showing their desktop that might have some information on it, is something that can give away information as to where you live, which can be a problem for swatting. It can be a problem for a variety of other reasons. But be careful with your IP address first. So be careful what you minimize on stream. Don't open up apps like Skype on stream. Be careful with that as well. And also be aware of protecting your physical address. And that means if you're vlogging and you're shooting an intro and you're outside and you're shooting like a 360 with a selfie stick, make sure that your mailbox isn't in there. The front of your house by your door that has your street number isn't in there. Because even back in 2013, when the OpTic house, the 6050 house got swatted, they were pretty careful about not showing their address, because while swatting wasn't as big of an issue then, people would send you like 100 pizzas to your house or just be obnoxious. And so protecting your physical address is really important, but I think it's particularly hyper important when we're talking about the issue of swatting, the issue of, stalkers, things like that.
People coming to your house.
Yeah. People coming to your house
all the time.
The Dr. Disrespect had his house shot at by a random person.
Yeah, dude. I remember I was watching that stream when that happened, man.
Absolutely insane that's
through happening. His window.
Yeah. But the thing is, you have to protect your physical address in every YouTube video, in every stream.
Yeah.
And it literally, if someone just gets your house number, they don't even get your street. If you live on 123 Sesame Street and those people get the 123, they can figure out the rest of the way.
They'll figure it out, man. They absolutely will. And it's funny because that stuff can become exposed by accident. I have a friend who's a very large streamer, and he was accidentally doxxed by Streamlabs whenever, for some reason, it showed his IP address, and he didn't have any security measures like VPN or anything like that to mask his IP, and he was doxxed, right? People knew his IP, and immediately, they destroyed his internet. He was unable to stream. They shut him down for days while his internet provider essentially gave him a new IP address, and it was terrible.
Yeah, but I think one of the things that people worry about, or questions that we'll get, is, well, okay, I'm a streamer, or I have a team of streamers, and people want to send stuff to us.
Yeah,
they want us to get stuff. They want us to send us Amazon packages or free stuff from sponsors. People want to get stuff sent to them, and you still don't give out your physical address, but there's ways to handle that.
Yeah. And so one of the important things you want to do, and if you're a streamer or if you have the potential of becoming somebody that's going to be coming to the public eye, the most important thing that you can do along with masking your IP and protecting your physical information is getting a PO box, right? Getting a PO box, or what's called the CMRA, right? Which is essentially a commercial mail receiving agency that do mail forwarding, right? You give them that address, and any packages that fans, sponsors, people that send you packages, it will go to your PO box, and it will essentially avoid you having point A to point B mail delivery directly to your house. And so you want to avoid that at all. You want to avoid that at all costs, right? You want to use mail forwarding address, right? Or sometimes people call them ghost address. Every opportunity you can. Right. This includes mail forwarding, even for basic things like for your home, like utility billing. If you're buying packages like Amazon, like we all do, you don't want to get them delivered directly to your house. You want to have them sent somewhere and then have them forwarded, and it'll get to your house, but you're sort of, getting around from getting directly to your house and that information becoming public.
And I promise, if you have a sponsor that wants to send you free products, they will not be inconvenienced by sending to a PO box.
Right.
Even if you don't have one set up yet and you just started streaming a week ago and somehow you got hosted by, Ninja or something, and now people want to send you stuff. If you say, give me a week to get a PO box set up, sponsors will not care. If they want to sponsor you, if they want to send you a free tub of G Fuel, whatever, they will. Don't be rushed if you get caught off guard without some sort of address protection, because even if you give it to a sponsor, anything like that, there's still a risk that can get out there, and that's not what you want.
Yeah. Now, another thing, especially us as attorneys, that we deal with is company filings, right? Oftentimes, a lot of small up and coming YouTubers and streamers and pro gamers will create an LLC, right? People always tell you want to protect your assets. And so you do that by creating a corporation or entity to protect your stuff, right? What the mistake that a lot of these people do is whenever you register your LLC or your corporation or whatever it is, entity that you have for your business, they do it themselves, or they'll hire some online, couple $100 website, and will put themselves as the registered agent, or will include their home address as a corporation address. Okay. That's a huge no. Don't do that if you want to protect yourself and your identity from abuse, right? Swatting, identity theft, all types of things, people coming to your house. Never use your own address or yourself as a registered agent. There are a ton of agencies out there that you pay a couple $100 a year or even less, and they will be your registered agent. If you get sued, if somebody needs to send you important legal documents, they will send to them, and they will in turn forward it to you. But never make yourself your own registered agent, and never include your address in any company filings, because remember, guys, that is public information. People can go to the Secretary of State website, look up your LLC, look up whatever company you have, and they will find out who created that entity, the address, the managing members, any information that you put on your application, they will find it and they will be able to get your direct information.
Yeah, I had a streamer org reach out to me a few weeks ago because they got some new streamers and they wanted to set up their own LLCs for every single streamer, which is a good idea. But some of the streamers were conscious of this issue. And they said, okay, who do I put down for a registered agent? Because to set up a corporation or an LLC in most states, you have to have a registered agent and you have to maintain that address every single year. And so to do that, literally, if you Google registered agent corporation services, there will be, a million of them that pop up. There are a lot of companies that make money by doing this, but make sure you don't put your own address anywhere in that LLC filing, because Secretary of State's websites are accessible by the public.
Yeah.
And
always.
Don't be fooled. A streamer asked me, they said, well, doesn't it cost money? Isn't it expensive to get access to Secretary of State website? A Secretary of State search, even in states where it costs money, the most expensive search I've seen was 10 cents for a search. And so if people want the information,
they're going to pay $1.
They can get the information.
I mean, if they're going to donate $1 to your stream, they're going to pay 10 cents to cause some damage to somebody they don't like.
Exactly. And so especially when it comes to an LLC, it would be, I think, a really good idea to talk to some sort of legal representation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just to be aware of, not only are you set up to where your assets are protected, but are you protected as an individual from some of these outside factors that are really unique to the streaming and kind of social media communities.
Yeah. And the last couple of important things, and this really applies to guys that or guys or girls, really, it's now there's everybody is getting big, is setting up essentially a private entity to hold your property, right? And I'm talking about vehicles, houses. What a lot of people do is they create a trust, right? Trust is sort of a legal entity or a legal, how do you describe
legal fiction?
It? Yeah, a legal fiction, essentially an anonymous name, and you can put your home under that name, so that way people can't find your public information. For example, most county appraisal districts, you can literally look up a person's name, and if they live within that county and you know that county, you will be able to find their address. Okay, all that information is public. Most professional athletes, a lot of celebrities do this to prevent people from being able to go to whatever county they live in and finding their address online. So if you create a trust, and make sure that in that trust, your name and your address and any of your private information is never in there, chances are you'll be able to maintain that anonymous and privacy factor that's important in keeping your family safe. Now, this trust or this privacy entity is probably the most important thing in protecting your address from getting to the public and other reporting agencies, and ensure that your address information doesn't go out. Same thing with your cars. When you register your car, you have to put an address. People will be able to find your information through your car registration, stuff like that. So essentially what I'm getting at is a basic rule of thumb is never give out your home address unless it's absolutely necessary. Okay. A lot of government agencies ask for it. It's kind of crappy, but you don't have to do that. Okay. Just because it's the Texas Department of Safety or whatever state you're in, the DPS, right? You don't have to give them your address. You can always give them a forwarding address or a PO box or whatever in order for you to be able to get whatever information you need to get. If you can avoid it, I would avoid it. Okay.
Absolutely. Now, and so that's what you do to help avoid getting swatted. But what do you do if you manage a team or organization, or if you're running an event? And I think whenever we talk about team managers, team owners, we always look to people in the industry to see how they've handled these issues before. And the OpTic Podcast recently had Hex talking about what he did to kind of avoid the swatting issue, particularly after the 2013 incident. And we're going to queue up that podcast and let you guys check it out here.
So when we moved here, like the first thing that I did is I scheduled a meeting with the sheriff and sergeant here in Frisco.
Yeah.
And I told them, like, this is who we are. This is what happens on the internet. Here are 2 numbers that you call first, and if nobody picks up there, then this.
Yeah.
And you and here's our addresses, all of them. If there's a bomb threat call to this thing, please read this first. Please send an email out to all your officers. This needs to be done.
You did that at McAlpin too.
I did that at McAlpin.
Because I never.
That's smart.
So that was Hex, who I think a lot of people think is probably one of the most progressive owners when it comes to handling the unique issues people face in esports.
That dude's smart, man.
Yeah.
It's probably because he lives in Texas. You know?
Yeah, right. So we're both in Texas right now. We're both Texas attorneys. But I think being able to approach those issues with caution and, with a lot of forethought really helps. And I think in doing that, if you're an owner, you have a team house or you have team apartments, notify the local police departments of the situation and just call the non-emergency line and say, hey, look, I have a group of gamers who live at this house. They're live broadcasts every day. And there's an issue where people will call the police on them as a prank. And so just say, if that happens, call these 2 phone numbers. And if no one answers, please proceed as usual. But one of those numbers needs to be you as the team owner, organizer, manager. The other person needs to be really your second in command. I wouldn't give it to the actual gamers themselves, because the problem and the scary part is about swatting is if you're streaming, if you're in a game, if you're in a match, particularly now where tournaments are played online, your headset's on, it's designed to cancel noise. Your volume's probably way up in your ears to hear everyone's footsteps running around you. And you won't be able to hear your phone ring, a knock on the door. You can't do a whole lot. And so whenever you're calling police departments and letting them know that you have gamers, you have streamers in their area, and if there's an issue called at this address to call you first, most police departments will be happy to do that because I understand there's a lot of conflict with police officers in this day and age, but really the last thing police officers want to do is make a mistake. Yeah. They still want to be right. Yeah. And if you can help them avoid a mistake, they're going to help you in making sure that they can do what's right as much as they can.
And the police, they will do that. A good example is Keemstar, right? Everybody knows Keemstar. He's been swatted, I think, maybe once or twice. And it's funny because he was playing Fortnite the day that he got swatted, but he had done just that. He was familiar with the local police department. He gave him his information, and that's exactly what they did. They called him before the SWAT responded. He answered the phone, spoke to them, said, hey guys, feel free to come over and check it out. Everything is fine, and de-escalated the situation right off the bat simply because he took that precaution. He called a local law enforcement, informed them of who he was. He was a celebrity, and chances are that he was going to be targeted, and was able to nip it in the bud right from the beginning.
Yeah, and I think especially if you are, running a team, be aware if your state has multiple police departments for an area, you have to call all of them. And so if you're in Texas, let's say you're in Dallas County, and there's a lot of teams in Texas now. If you're in Dallas County, you need to call the Dallas Police Department, right? DPD, the City of Dallas Police Department, the Dallas County Sheriff, the Dallas County Constable Precinct for your area. Yeah. Because the issue about swatting is you never know if they're going to call 911, if they're going to call the constable's office and tell them if they're going to target one of these agencies. And they don't always communicate with each other the best.
They usually don't, actually.
Yeah. And so a constable may not call the sheriff, or the sheriff may not call the city police department. And so make sure you call every police department that has jurisdiction in your area, which you can find out with a simple Google search. Yeah. And if you're in Texas, it's likely multiple if you're in Dallas, Houston, Austin. And so make sure you call each of them, explain to them what swatting is. They probably have an idea. Let them know that it can happen in the gamer culture. It could be a regular occurrence. Give them 2 phone numbers and just be aware that you may get a phone call. The other thing that you can do if you're running an event.
Yeah, that's probably the most important, is if you're running an event.
Yeah. And hopefully we get back to in-person events at some time in 2021.
I hope so, dude.
I really hope so. But it's never been more important because we may not have that many in-person events. They may happen in a bubble. And so they're that much more likely to be targeted. So what you can do if you're running an event is first, like you're running a team house, inform all law enforcement of what's going on. Yeah. That there is a video game event, that swatting is an issue where people call the police. They say some bomb threat or some serious crime has occurred. Yeah. Explain what it is, give them the 2 numbers, and treat it like you would a team house if you're organizing an event. you'll likely have police presence at your event. And so for those officers, they're going to kind of know what's up, but make sure you still reach out. And if you're in Dallas and you have DPD, Dallas Police Department, providing security at your event, still call the sheriffs.
Yeah.
Still call the constable, still call the city police, because like I said, you never know either who 911 is going to dispatch, or if, the person calling may call a specific agency because they know that you only have DPD working your event. You don't have Dallas County Constable Precinct 4.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say. Chances are the city ordinance is going to require you to hire them if you have over a certain amount of people. And so because you already hired them, might as well just go the extra step and just let everybody know. And then, be proactive and try to have them maybe do like a bomb sweep or whatever. So that way, that your venue is secure. Yeah. And so the other thing you can do is have your venue cleared by a bomb team. And that will probably be in the form of bomb sniffing dogs. Yeah. Which are cool. Which are awesome. But it's it's a really good idea to have those guys on hand to say that you've already swept the area before and after every day of the event. And that way, if there's a bomb threat called, the police that arrive already have a grasp on what's going on from the bomb sniffing dogs. They know where they've been, where they haven't. Mm-hmm. And this process can go that much smoother. And hopefully you don't have to cancel an entire day of your event, because, video game events aren't the only place where bomb threats are called. There's football games, there's baseball games, and you better believe they have people searching those stadiums before and after all these events. The other thing that you're going to have to consider if you're an event organizer is that these precautions, hiring of security, the bomb team to make sweeps, are going to cost more. They're going to cost extra, especially with the bomb dogs. There are third-party services that offer this. So you may not be able to hire the Dallas Police Department bomb team, but you can hire some third-party bomb sniffing dog team, or some dog team that has dogs that do this. Probably certified and they're certified the exact same. But it's a step that you need to take, and with a simple Google search. There's a ton of teams, especially if you're in Texas putting on an event. There's a third party dog team at every county. But it's important to coordinate with third parties, which is local law enforcement, which may be additional security, additional it'll be for bomb threats and stuff. It'll be additional costs, but it'll be cheaper than losing a day of an event, right? I mean, every day that passes that you're not running your event, you're losing money. And so it's what you're going to spend a little bit now, or risk losing more by canceling an event or losing a day or two. And even in that, in 2017, at that Dallas Championship Series for the Call of Duty World League, they missed an entire day of events, and so there were top teams that weren't featured on streams in their matches, that weren't featured on the main stage in their matches, which people had paid to see. And so you have issues where people are not able to watch the teams on stream they want to see. You're not getting as much stream revenue as you wanted. And so if you fail to take some of these precautions, you may end up losing more money than if you had saved. In-person revenue too, you're not going to be selling any merch. You're not going to be selling any hard copies of photos, autographs. You miss out on a lot of opportunities by missing a whole day of an event. No, exactly. So if you're running an event and you're thinking what you can do in terms of venue management, there's a lot of third-party law enforcement access that can be preventative and preemptive. And so you need to take advantage of at least the items identified that have happened in the past, that being swatting by informing all of the law enforcement in the area, and then bomb threats, which have cleared out buildings multiple times. And some sort of preemptive sweep with some third-party qualified team can help you not prevent those calls from happening, but better manage them when they do happen. Right. Because I promise there will be an event. Well, I don't promise there will be an event in 2021, but I promise if there is an event in 2021, that there will be some issue with someone trying to play a prank on it. Hopefully it's not a serious one, but if it is, it's your job to be prepared. And so to essentially summarize what we discussed today, if you're a young person that's a gamer, considers yourself a member of the community, don't SWAT. please, we beg you. It's the most ridiculous thing you do. It's extremely dangerous, and you will literally be throwing away your future. I mean, you will get caught. Okay, it's been proven. You know, the guy that swatted H3H3 twice also recently got discovered, and he was sent to jail. I mean, it's just don't do it. It's dangerous. And if you're an organization, or if you're a streamer, or if you're a professional esport player, be proactive about it. Avoid it, and just follow the tips that we gave you guys today, and you guys should be golden.
Yeah. In the meantime, stay tuned for more episodes of the Law of Esports podcast, the #1 podcast discussing legal issues as they apply to the world of esports. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.